Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach. Today we have with us Leslie Morris, who's the owner of Invest in the Smoky Mountains. Leslie, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So I love the initiative of Invest in the Smoky Mountains. That's very specific. So we want to dive into that, but give us a little bit of your story. How did you get into this industry and what is your entrepreneurial journey up to this point?
Yeah, well, I was a banker. I was actually a career banker. So one of those folks that went to school to become a banker. And I did that for about 23 years. I was living and working in Los Angeles when my real estate investing journey really kicked into high gear. I was going to buy, just a long-term rental. And I just decided, the margins are really not there for this. What else is out there? How can I have something fun that I could use, for myself, that I could bring, family and friends on vacations at and rent it when I'm not there. So that was how I got started. And I discovered the Smoky Mountains because I, like I said, was living and working in Los Angeles, and the price per square foot on properties there is very high. So, I was like, where do I go? And so I did a lot of research on my own, just through the internet, and kind of fell into the Smoky Mountain. It's like a whole thing, and I didn't even know about it, But it was,
that's really, it's kind of like the best kept secret kind of a concept, I would suspect, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a big, it's a big to do. If you've ever been to the Smoky Mountains, there's like 3 towns that comprise the area. It's in eastern Tennessee. It's within driving distance of almost the entire, 60-70% of the United States population can get there in an 8-hour drive or less. So everybody drives in and they go to places like Dollywood, or in Pigeon Forge, there's a theme park called the Island, or there's an aquarium down in Gatlinburg. And then you also have the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, which sees, visitation numbers upwards of 12 to 13 million visitors a year. So as a result, the vacation, market just boomed there, and there are just cabins all over the place. So that was kind of, it just drew me in because I thought, well, this seems like it would be great because I love cabins. Like I just have this true love affair with cabins. And also I thought this would be a great business strategy because I figured I wouldn't have to worry about making sure that people booked them. Like there was a lot of reasons why someone would want to come there and have a vacation.
Because it's a destination.
Yeah, totally.
And unique, like it's not just, let me build a hotel and hopefully can keep it occupancy high. This is a unique area, destination, and cabins. I'm with you on cabins. My family have a cabin in the mountains of Colorado, and it's like, yeah, you give me that rustic wood and out in nature. That's pretty amazing. So that's pretty cool. So at what point did you started with getting your own short-term rentals and used it yourself, and then you started then going, well, hey, if I'm doing it, I can teach other people how to do it as well.
Exactly. Yeah, I bought a couple right away with some retirement money. And then they just started making really good money. And so I thought, well, I should just probably buy a few more. And so today I own 11 and I'm building a 12th. And then now I offer management for others.
So when you say short-term rentals, is that similar to like an Airbnb, or is it a whole different category?
No, it's definitely that same category. So a short-term rental is anything that you're going to rent for 28 nights or less. So somebody that's there primarily just for vacation. Our average guest, they'll stay anywhere from 3 to 5 nights. Sometimes it's a bit longer, but it's usually 3 to 5 nights. And Airbnb is just one channel where we list the properties for rent.
Got it.
But obviously our preference is to get direct bookings at our website.
Because then there's less middleman fees.
Yes, exactly. Mostly on the traveler side. It's shocking to me, like we will send emails after guests stay with us and say, hey, next time you want to stay, directly book with us and we'll give you a discount. But they'll still go back through Airbnb because they just remember how they booked it before.
Yeah.
And it costs them, gosh, probably, I think the fees for Airbnb is like 15%, and that's charged to the guest.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very high.
So then when you are looking at, showing a investor how to do what you've been doing, doesn't the topic come up of, well, if it's that popular and isn't it saturated? So if I'm getting in now, I'm at the end of the, bell curve. And so my property that I buy and put my retirement money into or borrow money for, how often is that going to get rented? And is it a good investment? So what do you say about being saturated?
Yeah, I get that all the time. Yeah, there are a lot of cabins there. It has been a vacation destination since it was a thing. So since I think the 60s, back when the Great Smoky Mountains was recognized with their park status. So in a sense, sure, there's a ton of cabins, but people are coming there to stay in cabins. So what I say to that is, a couple of things. The first thing is do your underwriting. Make sure that you're getting something that you can afford and that the rents coming in are going to cover expenses. We want to see some sort of margin so you can make money on it. That's typically 20% that we shoot for. But then the second thing with that is to also make sure that you get a cabin that most people will want to book. So if you get a very, very small cabin, that might not do as it might not book as well because it is small. Or if you get a cabin that's just, kind of mediocre, it's just in the forest, there's nothing special about it, then obviously your property will get overlooked and they'll be going on to the bigger, better properties. So I just recommend three main things. And the three main things are location, what the view, what the setting is like, where you're at, and then your amenities. Those are the three major things that you have to make sure you get right for it to be a slam dunk.
Similar to the old mantra in real estate, location, location, location. So that's at least the first thing you need to think about. So, I mean, I think that's a huge thing that someone is looking at going, okay, I've heard of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I know that real estate can be lucrative, but this is sounding, and so I'm the curious third party listening into this, asking you questions that you probably get, right? And I'm like, well, if I buy a single family residence house or a condo in a mountain town, I'm going to rent that out for, year contracts, like a typical rental property. But these are 3-5 days a week and a half. How do you calculate if that rental throughout the year is going to bring in enough consistent income to pay the mortgage plus a profit?
Yeah, there's some underwriting strategies that we employ that are fairly straightforward and easy, and I can talk through those. And then you want to know what your average occupancy rate is, as well as your what we call ADR, that's average daily rate. So the nightly base rate that we charge for rent. We have a couple ways of figuring that out. Because this is a vacation market and it's been that way since the beginning of time, the cities, particularly I'm thinking of the city of Pigeon Forge out here in Tennessee, they put out reports. So there is historical data that you can go on and pull up to see what it's going to do. But someone like me who's been an investor in the market now for several years, plus I'm a licensed agent and a licensed property manager, I have access and insight to all of that data for you. So you don't really need to recreate the wheel. It's more about finding the people that have the knowledge so that you can plug it into your underwriting metrics.
And so what is a typical, I guess the phrase would be, occupancy, or how many nights per month should that be estimated?
Yeah, I would say it's anywhere from 65 to 75%. Okay. So last year, my personal portfolio as a whole was at 71%. And I actually brought that down because in the prior year, when we were in the heyday of the pandemic, which was a great time for us, occupancy was at 88%, which honestly, after I went in and started seeing oh, wow, there's furniture that needs to be replaced, there's carpet that needs to be deep cleaned, there was more wear and tear on the properties by having that higher occupancy. Right. So what I did was I had a strategy for last year where I brought the occupancy down by increasing the nightly rate. So I actually ended up making the same, if not more money, but with just less people in there.
And then that preserves the wear and tear, and it probably gave you some days and nights where it wasn't occupied that you can slip in there and make some of those upgrades.
Exactly. Exactly. So that's the strategy now going forward.
So how do you get started? So if someone is hearing this going, okay, cool, destination, Rocky Mountain, Pigeon Forge, love it. I want to start. I heard you say I'm building a new one. Well, do I start with a new construction? Do I buy an existing? Where do you advise people to get started?
Yeah, I advise no on new construction. We see a lot of things coming on the market that are mostly like specs, like they haven't been built yet. So
Yeah.
if you get into a contract like that, you're not going to have any cash flow until you can actually close on the finished property, and then you'll have to furnish it. So what I recommend is buying something that is turnkey. Most of the cabins, they're going to come fully furnished with everything you need, dishes, all that, furniture, TVs, that's all going to be in there for you. You just got to check it, make sure it's still, something you would want to rent yourself if you were going to stay in a cabin there. But yeah, and then so you're paying one price, whatever the list price is for the property, whatever you negotiate to get that place pretty much rent ready. So all you need to do is just walk through, like I said, make sure you're testing everything, make sure it looks great. It might need like a deep clean or something. And then you can literally almost just turn right around and throw it back on, depending if you're going to self-manage the property or not. I don't recommend that. I recommend getting a property manager.
Yeah.
But you can essentially hand the keys over and have somebody immediately start making money off of the asset if you buy it turnkey.
And talking about property management, yes, there's a fee for that, whatever the fee or percent is. But the alternative is if you live in, like me, Colorado, and I've got a place in in Pigeon Forge. Well, now all of a sudden, if something goes wrong, who's going to fix it? I've got to go find local people or handle it myself. That's a mess. So it would make most sense to me is to have that local property manager that's handling all of that. And then that just goes into your profit margin to, you're going to make a little bit less, but you've got all the headaches gone.
Yes, exactly. I see a lot of new investors. They say, oh, but if I do this myself, it's going to double my net, my take home. Well, yeah, that's true. But if you're a doctor, a lawyer, a banker, whatever your 9-to-5 career is, you're not going to be able to sit there texting somebody that's in your property.
Yep.
And what are you going to do if something goes wrong with the water or the toilet or, what
you can't drive down the road and be there.
Yeah, you got to rely on somebody that you've maybe never met that lives in this town. And there's a lot of horror stories out there about how they don't show up. In between guests, we have what's called the turn. And that's when we're, cleaning it up after the last guest, positioning it, getting it ready for the next guest. And if you don't have eyes on it and you don't have somebody you can trust, that's going to make your life a little bit miserable.
Yeah.
So that's why you want a property manager.
Yes, for sure. So, what would you say to someone that goes, okay, so like you said, you took some retirement funds, or maybe someone has a home equity line on their personal property that they can just buy the cabin cash. Well, now they've depleted that account or that home equity line, and now they're going to start renting it out, and the cash flow is going to start repaying then where they pulled the money from. Is there a specific recommendation you have to say, no, I'd recommend not using cash or home equity line, just get a loan because what? Is there a strategy that way that is better than the other?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was a career banker, and you also referenced Robert Kiyosaki. So his whole strategy is using other people's money, OPM. So, there's a lot of different structures for loans. I do have access to the top lenders in the area, and they have structures anywhere from, your conventional 30-year mortgage where you can put 10 or 15% down. So that would be your cash. And maybe that cash does come from, your home equity line or your retirement or wherever you have it. But then the remainder of, the total to get into the property is being held by the bank, which you're paying interest on. That's the best structure. If you can't get into that conventional mortgage because maybe you don't have good provable W-2 income or, what have you, there is another type of asset-based lending called debt service coverage ratio loans. These are your DSCR loans. And these type of lenders can still structure it very much like a conventional mortgage. It's a 30-year mortgage. It's going to have closing costs and interest rates that are a tad bit higher than conventional, but very similar structure. You can put 20 to 25% down and then still use other people's money essentially to get into the property.
Yeah. And then, of course, with that added risk, maybe the rates are higher, but the alternative is you couldn't get in anyway because you can't prove all your income.
Exactly. And like where I'm at, because my portfolio is so sizable, I can't qualify for conventional mortgages because there's a cap on
The
the
number of
number
properties.
of, yeah. So I
Yeah.
have to do more of these commercial type
Hmm.
structures. And it's fine. You just do your underwriting knowing that your interest rate is higher. And you
Yeah.
just make sure you're conservative in your numbers, and you can still definitely get properties that will cash flow straight out of the gate.
So as an example, without, giving promises, but for an average investment and an average interest rate and an average, if you're saying to someone, hey, look, this is a great investment because your cash flow could be an average of X. What is that cash flow? Is it like going through all these, gyrations to get all this done? You're making $100 a month, or could it be several $100s a month of cash flow coming back to the investor?
Oh, it could be several thousand. So I bought a property in December of 2022. And of course, I own my own property management company. So I don't have that
Yeah.
component, but I'm expecting to walk away annually with $45,000 from that one property that I bought. And it was a 3-bed, 3-bath cabin, gorgeous cabin. It was a new construction, but it was like, it's a year old. And what else about it? I mean, I did have to do a DSCR loan. It did have a higher interest rate, but the property is just so beautiful and it's in a great location. It's really close to the water park. So yeah, expecting to make 45 grand. And I don't look at the monthly number just because there are lower months of the year when you might,
Right.
break even. And then very, very like June, July, October, those months are like we do
Yeah.
phenomenally well.
Yeah,
So
you look
that's
at
just
it
to give an
quarterly
idea.
or annually. The bill's going to get paid, but this month is a thinner profit margin cash flow, and then all of a sudden in the peak seasons, then that's where you make it all. But at the end of the year, if you're going to make 40, 45, or even shoot for that matter, 25 or 30, that's a nice
Right.
profit margin. And then I'm sure you would bring in a tax professional to say, speak to this investor at the level of, now if you have this mortgage that you're paying on that, I'm sure that there are tax benefits that way that a tax professional would advise on. So there's another benefit. And then down the road, years down the road, as you're paying that loan off slowly but surely, that equity is building up. So it's just like, Kiyosaki would say, it's real estate and you get the immediate benefit of cash flow, but also some of those other ancillary benefits.
Yes, of course. Yeah, I think, and then back to Rich Dad Poor Dad. We'll just beat that with a stick. But read that book if you haven't read it. Great book, and it will talk about some of the strategies to. I don't want to use the term hiding your income, but with real estate, there are some clever things that can be done that the government allows us to do
Yeah.
around depreciation. So look into that.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's not hiding or unethical. It's just properly executing all the strategies that are available
Yes.
to business owners or property investors. That like I heard literally today. I interviewed someone that is in the tax world, and I think the number is 83,000. There's 83,000 pages in the IRS tax code. Well, how in the world are we supposed to understand that? So if you get with that good tax professional who can say, oh, for your situation, here's some options. So yeah, all of that is wonderful. It kind of makes me think of this too. If someone does a deal and they see some of those benefits and they go, I'm all in, I want to do another and talking about, scaling up and going fast. What is your recommendation? You might find someone that's got a couple $100,000 and that those 10 or 20% down payments, that can be 7, 8, 9, 10 projects. How fast should someone go?
I mean, I bought 2 right away, like back to back within 30 days. And then that was right towards the end of a year. And so then the next year I bought 5. And then the next year I bought 5. And then last year I did 4. And some of them I was like, I would sell them and then buy different ones. But I had two solid years where I bought five new properties each year. So I mean, the sky is really the limit. The one thing I will say about that though is make sure you have appropriate cash reserves. You can't just have a little bit of money or a credit card. If you're going to scale a large portfolio, things can go sideways quickly, and you just want to make sure you're prepared for that. And I say things going sideways quickly, I mean like let's say, something happens with your property and you need to pull it off the market and not rent it. So you just want to make sure you're insured appropriately too. You have loss of rental income. And then I also own a cabin right now where we're having issues with the well. It has its own water source, but there's some sort of issue where we're running out of water. So I'm having to truck in water, and that's costing me extra each month. So you just make sure you have, appropriate amount of money for each project that you do. And that could be 3 to 6 months of operating expenses. I'm more comfortable with 6. And so just look at your strategy and make sure you're thinking about that too.
Yeah, because that property management company component takes care of the elbow grease work of it, but it doesn't pay for so if the toilet is overflowing, the property management company is going to be the liaison, but you still got to pay the bill to fix those things.
Yeah. So our company we're pretty flexible. Like, we'll cover a lot of little things that are considered consumables. So if a guest breaks like a wine glass, we'll cover that out of insurance that we carry. But for the most part, if something is going wrong at your property, you will have somebody to rely on to fix it, but you'll get billed for it.
Yeah. So are you finding that a certain type of investor is better suited for this than others? Like, as an example, someone that's looking at retirement in the next 5 to 10 years and they just want to, seed in some of this for retirement income? Or is this someone that it doesn't matter what age or stage you're at?
I actually have been working with a lot of people lately that have heard my story about how I left my job in 3 years, and they want to copy what I've done. So I'm getting a lot of hungry, eager, typically they have some sort of, decent paying W-2 job and they've got some cash and they're ready to get started on something. Because if you just have cash sitting in a checking account, inflation is, what was that, 6% last year? And that's eating it away. But then I also do work with some older clients as well that just say, we think it would be fun to do this. We can bring the grandkids out there. And then I have very wealthy, some doctor clients, quite a few actually, that they're like, we just need a tax write-off. So we honestly don't care if it performs or not. We just need a strategy. So there's a lot of different clients I work with. And, I do a free 15-minute call, and I'm happy to provide information on how to schedule that and talk and just see where you're at and see if it would be right for you.
Yeah, I think that is perfect. Let's wrap up with that, because this has been really informative. I just love the focus that you have. So, Leslie, what is the best way someone could learn more and then reach out and connect with you?
Sure. Yeah. My website is leslieannmorris.com, and it's Ann with an E. And then I'm also on Instagram, and it's at leslie.ann.morris.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a real pleasure talking with you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mike. Appreciate it.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.